Welcome back to the studio. I'm Sarah and I've been a milliner and educator for 30 years. And in this video, I'm going to be looking at felt brim edges. And anyone who knows me knows that I hate machine sewing an edge. So let's have a look at how we get this beautifully turned edge brim, hand sewn with almost no stitches visible. When I start sewing my hats, the first thing I do is make sure I'm choosing a good quality thread. I want a thread that is smooth, not too fluffy, quite fine, with quite a bit of strength to it. So I think buying good thread is worth the investment. Once I've chosen my thread for a job, regardless of whether I'm sewing a felt, a straw, foundation fabric, or sewing with single or double thread, the very first thing I do is wax it. I run it through my clean wax a few times just to make sure it's really nicely coated. And then to make sure I'm not getting too much wax on my hat and it's not creating too much kind of residue there, I'm just going to run it through my hot iron. And this makes sure that the wax is really nicely in the thread and that my thread is smooth. For this stitch, I absolutely could leave my wire just floating around, roll this over, sew it down, and it would be quite secure. But it does mean that my wire can roll around in my brim and move around. So if I wanted to use this wire not just to hold my hat firmer, but to give it extra shape and kind of play with it a bit, I don't want my wire moving around. So the very first thing I'm going to do is grab a tailor's pencil, mark in here so that I know that once I fold this back out, I'm sewing exactly on my fold line. I want my wire to sit right in there as close to the edge as I can get it. And then what I'm going to do is simply blanket stitch it into that fold. I'm going to make sure that I'm not squashing my hat too much. And when I go in here and grab a bit of my felt, I need to make sure that I've grabbed enough felt to hold it securely, but not so much that I'm either leaving a dent on this side or leaving an actual stitch mark there. So I'm just going to sew over there again, make sure that I'm not catching my thread so that my wire is securely held there. And then I'm just going to blanket stitch along here at maybe about a centimetre distance so that my wire is firmly held down. I've now got my wire held in there really securely, ready to roll this edge and sew that down. And it's held in there so well that I could start to play with my brim, make it different shapes, and my wire's not going to scooch around the edge of my hat. Now that my wire is securely held into my brim, I just need to roll this edge over and give it the perfect finish so that I can see almost no stitches on the bottom or on the top of my brim. The very first thing I'm going to do is hide my knot in this part of it. I'm going to open up this so I can see it and bring my single thread up through the edge of my finished hat. So I don't want to come right through to the front and I don't want it back. I want to come all the way through this cut edge of my brim. Pull my thread up through here and I've got a thread coming out of here. So just holding it down kind of loosely. I don't want to put too much pressure on my hat and start bending it. I then come directly underneath that stitch and along my brim. So you can see here I'm picking up a small amount of thread, but I'm not coming through to the front, and I'm not even really leaving a little dent there. I want this to look as seamless as possible when I'm done. I am going to pull that through, and then you can see if I pulled it taut, that slips into there and I can't really see that stitch, but it's still quite firm and secure because I've grabbed a lot of felt from here and from the brim of the hat. And we just keep going like that. Come straight back up through the edge of my finished brim here. Pull it through and tighten it down. Now that I've got to the end of my brim, I just need to neatly finish this up, hide my knot inside there, and my brim is finished. It just needs a light brush to smooth out all the felt again, and I will have a brim that has no stitches showing on this side or any stitches showing on the top there. And it just needs a small smooth out to be looking super sleek. Thanks for joining me as we rolled the edge of this brim by hand. If there are other stitches you'd really love to learn, drop a comment below. And if you found this video helpful, like it and subscribe for our other tips and tricks videos.